Hello, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. Today I wanted to talk about personal responsibility, which I feel like is the cornerstone to having a happy, fulfilling life. You gotta have this part understood and settled, and then you can dive into the whole world of self-help or inner work or development and really see positive changes. But I really feel like this is the root of all of that. And so what I'm going to cover today is a couple different things. First, I wanted to talk about locus of control and define what that is. It's a term in psychology, and talk a little bit about what is an internal versus external locus of control. And then I want to dive into what you are responsible for in your life, which is a lot, and maybe a little bit different than what you have thought about in the past. And this was definitely something that I had to develop in myself. And then we'll talk about what you are not responsible for and the harm that can happen when trying to take responsibility for things that are not within your control or things that are not yours to take responsibility for. So that's kind of the outline. And then there is a bit of I guess like homework, some journaling that I think will make a really big difference in applying what I'm talking about today. So I will let you know what those questions are to ask yourself, and we kind of when to jot things down. I've mentioned in my other videos, I'm a very big fan of journaling as a way of understanding yourself better, working through things. And so whether you do it on a phone app or writing it down or just in your head, try and think about the questions as I move through this so that you can get the most out of what I'm sharing here today. So let's first dive into defining what is locus of control. A locus of control refers to a person's beliefs about how much control they have over what happens to them in their lives and how much influence they have in what happens in the world around them. So there are two types of locuses of control. There is the external locus of control, which is where you attribute the things that happen in your life to external factors like luck or fate. And you also feel that external factors are the reason and the drivers behind why things in your life have happened the way that they have, including your actions. So everything is outsourced basically in terms of responsibility and control as well. There are several studies that show that having an external locus of control is linked to criminal or problematic behavior. And I think if you take a second, it makes sense, because someone who feels like who feels that their behaviors are not up to them, that it is not their responsibility to manage their own behaviors, that they are at the whim of external forces, and the external forces have complete control over why they have done things or act the way that they do. I think that's where you can really see why that link would be there. But regardless of criminal behavior or not, there are still a couple negative consequences to having an external locus of control. So some of this would be a lack of motivation, where why would you have the drive to try and make things better or change things if you feel like there's nothing that you do matters? It's going to matter. It's up to fate or external circumstances. So that's a little information on external locus of control. And now I want to go into an internal locus of control. So an individual who has an internal locus of control believes that they can control their own destiny, that they are responsible for themselves and for things in their life. It's very much the can-do attitude. If I want something to happen, I have to make it happen. A couple benefits, right? It would be the increased sense of empowerment. So again, feeling like if I can do things, not only do I want to do things, but I can do them. Often those that if you have motivation to do something, or goal setting, if you're someone that likes to set goals, often those are also linked to an internal locus of control, because again, it's belief that you can do something, that you can, through your own efforts, through actions, changes, whatever, that you can move towards where you want to move towards, as opposed to just, again, at the mercy of whatever comes your way. So studies show that people that have an internal locus of control are more strategic when it comes to problem solving. In general, they have better mental health. They're also in better physical health, and overall have a better sense of accountability, which I think all of those make sense when you think about it. So there are times when maybe having an internal locus of control isn't the most helpful, or taking responsibility for things maybe isn't appropriate, and I will get to that a little bit later. I also want to take a second to define the difference between fault and responsibility. And I believe I made a short about this once, but I really loved Mark Manson's example, I think in his book, where it is not your fault if someone, like, let's say, happens to leave a baby on your doorstep, unless it's your baby. But that's not what I'm talking about. So it is not your fault if someone leaves a baby on your doorstep. However, it is now your responsibility to decide what to do with that baby, right? Whether you take it to the hospital, you call the police, bring the baby inside, whatever the thing is, you are responsible for what happens next, even though it is not your fault that happened in the first place. So I think it's important to distinguish between fault and responsibility. We are responsible for our actions, our choices, our thoughts, our feelings, our expression of those feelings, our beliefs, our health and body to the extent that we can control or influence those, our response to external factors, and anything that, if we have a part to play, we are responsible for that part of whatever situation is, of maybe we don't control all the pieces of it, right? Like health. Sometimes there are things that happen outside of our control, but there are many, many pieces within health that are our responsibility. And this is where the first journaling prompt comes in. So I want you to write down your answer to these questions. Where are you good at taking personal responsibility, and where do you outsource the responsibility? Where have you repeatedly blamed something external for why you are where you are? And also, take a moment to think about if you use personal responsibility to bash on yourself. Like, are you using this as an opportunity to just tear yourself up and say, see, it is your fault, which again goes back to fault versus responsibility. It is possible to be honest and take responsibility without assuming fault or blame. So take the negative gold from this, which is that you have so much more power than you think you do. So for me, overall, I feel like I've been pretty good at taking personal responsibility for my life. I'm very much kind of like a go-getter personality, but there are places that I've struggled. And I think that places that you see yourself repeatedly struggle are a really good place to take a look at and dive in and see where you maybe aren't taking full responsibility for your part. So a couple places where I wasn't taking full responsibility was I would blame sugar for being addictive, and that's why I kept eating food that made me sick. Or I would blame social media for being addictive, and that's why I was on my phone late at night and not getting enough sleep. Or I blamed just a nature of being shy as to the reason why I was struggling to make friends in, like the area that I moved to. And I blamed the wear and tear of the job or school that I was in as the reason why I was so unhappy. By taking full responsibility, I stopped feeling like a victim and instead felt much more capable of handling the challenges that I was facing. And you don't have to have the solution completely worked out. You don't have to, taking responsibility doesn't mean you know the answer right away, right? It's just ownership of the thing, of where you're at and where you want to go. Because from the position of radical responsibility, now you are in a place of weighing options, making choices, taking action, changing your perspective, doing something or reinterpreting something so that you can actually form it into what you want it to be, or more aligned with what you want it to be. So why take responsibility for those things that I listed? Your choices, your actions, your thoughts, your emotions, your reactions to external circumstances. Why take responsibility for those? Because you will be in a more powerful position by doing so. From the position of responsibility, that's where you get to improve things or work on things or change things. Okay, so that covers what you are responsible for. And it is a lot when you really dive in and think about what each of those means. It's a lot of aspects of your life, of your existence that you are responsible for. But now I want to go into what you are not responsible for, and also talk about the harm in taking responsibility for things that you should not take responsibility for. Okay. You are not responsible for how other people react or respond or feel or handle their emotions. You are not responsible for adults' choices or actions, and not really for children's either, but you are responsible for your children, for taking care of them. You are not responsible for other people's happiness or for meeting their needs, just as they are not responsible for yours. Yes, we can influence other people, but ultimately the responsibility is to each their own. Now, this requires a secondary belief, which is that you need to believe that everybody is capable. They are full, sovereign human beings who are capable of running their own life, of existing, and of taking responsibility for all the things that you take responsibility for within yourself. Also, we are not responsible for predicting the future or for Mother Nature. And yes, again, like the aspect of influence, there are layers that we are responsible for, right? Using the information and knowledge that we have to the best of our ability to protect against crazy weather or prepare for rain. Like all of that, yes, that we do play a role in that, but you are not responsible for making it rain. So now I want to talk about the harm that happens when you try to take responsibility for things that are not yours. I think that children and childhood is a really, really good example of this, where as children, we have a tendency to take responsibility for things outside of our control. This is why we turn on ourselves when we're little, because it is a much scarier, harsher world to believe that we are completely at the mercy of everything and have zero say, versus we have some potential influence on why things are happening. So here's an example. Let's say that you're a child and your parent comes home from work and they're very frustrated every time they come back from work, and they take it out on you. They scream at you, they tear you down, they really come after you, we'll just say verbally. That parent is obviously not good at handling their emotions or expressing them, and they are letting them out onto the child who had nothing to do with what happened at work. But the child will interpret this as, I am bad, I made mom or dad upset. And while this negative view of themselves overall is not good, and especially as they grow up is going to become a harmful view of themselves, in the moment, in childhood, it is more hopeful to think, I am the reason why mom or dad acted this way, something that I did, something that I am. So if I change that, so if I do something different, maybe I can change what happens and I can prevent them from getting upset. And I think that's a really clear example of how you can't take responsibility for other people, especially as a child, right? You're not responsible for adults' choices. And it is a lot of wasted energy to be trying to control things that are not yours. Going on to the second part of kind of the life audit, right? So the first part was, where are you not taking responsibility? So this next part is, where are you trying to control things that are not in your control? Where are you taking responsibility for what is not yours? And again, write it in the journal or write it in notes on your phone. But I have found this to be a really powerful exercise, getting really clear on things that I have been unconsciously trying to control or manipulate or influence from people that ultimately it's not mine to control. I just get to focus on my bubble, which, as we talked about before, it's a really big bubble. There's a lot to it. So pouring your attention into that is how you're going to make changes and improve your life and your relationships and everything overall. When you don't take responsibility for things outside of your control, you get freedom. All that energy that you've been wasting trying to control the things that you can't, you get to pour that back into creating the life, the love, the living the way that you want to. You get to pour that energy into the people that you care about. And like I said, you have a lot that you are responsible for, so you do not want to add unnecessarily to that list. So moral of the story here, give yourself power by taking responsibility for everything about you, and give yourself freedom by letting go of the things that are not yours to control. And I'm going to reiterate some of the questions and maybe a couple new ones that I think really help clarify this for yourself. So I really recommend diving in. So where are you good at taking personal responsibility, and where do you outsource? Where have you repeatedly blamed something external for why you are where you are? And how can you look at things differently? What does taking responsibility for those things mean? What does it look like? Where are you trying to control things that are not yours to control? Where are you taking responsibility for what is not yours? Where are you trying to manage other people or aspects of other people that is not yours to manage? And what would it mean if you saw others as fully capable human beings? that is all I got, and I'm so happy to be back. And let me know your thoughts. I think that's it.